We all have that negative inner voice that tells us we're not good enough, that we'll fail, or that we should just play it safe. Psychologists call this the inner critic, that harsh internal monologue that amplifies self-doubt and fear. According to research, over 80% of people experience negative self-talk and harsh self-criticism on a regular basis. But giving in to that critical voice is one of the biggest dream killers. As Oprah Winfrey said, self-doubt is diet for fears. It keeps us paralyzed and prevents us from going after what we truly want in life. In this video, I'm going to share 3 powerful strategies I've used to silence my own inner critic, so you can start believing in yourself and taking bold action towards your biggest goals and dreams. Fear and self-doubt often stem from deep-rooted negative thought patterns and harsh self-criticism. The first step is to become aware of your negative self-talk loops. I'll never forget a time before giving a big presentation. My inner critic went into overdrive saying things like, "You're going to mess this up and everyone will think you're an imposter." But I caught those thoughts and reframed them to, "I'm well prepared and will do my best." Noticing and reframing negative self-talk is so powerful. In one study at the University of Pennsylvania, people who consciously rephrased their self-criticisms into self-compassionate statements felt a 28% increase in motivation and self-confidence. Once you're aware of that inner critical voice, you can replace those thoughts with more positive, realistic reframes. Rather than thinking, "I'll never be able to do this," tell yourself, "This is new and challenging, but I'm willing to learn and grow." I worked with a client recently who constantly beat herself up with phrases like, "I'm so stupid," but we reframed that inner critic to say, "I'm working on improving every day." Simple reframes like that can start reprogramming self-doubt into self-belief. A lot of our self-doubt also comes from having what psychologist Carol Dweck calls a fixed mindset, the belief that our skills and abilities are set in stone from birth. But adopting what she calls a growth mindset rooted in curiosity can quiet the inner critic. Instead of listening to fears about what you can or cannot do, get curious and open-minded. Ask yourself, what if I studied this new approach? Or I wonder what insights I'd gain if I tried a different strategy. Cultivating curiosity helps you see failures not as permanent outcomes, but temporary life lessons. It keeps you humble enough to keep expanding your abilities. Share example of being initially afraid to start a YouTube channel due to inner critic doubts, but adopted curiosity to interview successful creators and learned new skills. That curiosity transformed self-doubt into self-motivation. One study even found that an open, curious mindset can increase performance by up to 40%. Point 3. Take imperfect action. Perfectionism is one of the biggest fuel sources for self-doubt and the inner critic. We're paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes or not achieving some unrealistic ideal. But the greatest antidote to self-doubt is simply taking imperfect action towards your goals. As Brené Brown said, courage is taking your fear and walking towards it anyway. I remember the fears I had before starting my YouTube channel, but I decided to just start by recording an imperfect beginner video. Done will always be better than perfect. By taking imperfect baby steps, even if they're messy or rough around the edges, you gain confidence through real-world experience. Each imperfect action builds evidence that overpowers your inner critic's doubts. Looking at famously successful people like Steve Jobs and J.K. Rowling, it's clear their early efforts were filled with imperfect action and failure. Jobs was fired from Apple, the company he started. Rowling's first Harry Potter book was rejected by a dozen publishers, but their willingness to take imperfect action and persist through self-doubt allowed their eventual breakthroughs. As the saying goes, courage doesn't mean you don't get afraid. Courage means you don't let fear stop you. One study found that even taking a single small step reduces your pessimism about an intimidating task by 30%. So if your inner critic is holding you back, combat it by taking an imperfect action, no matter how small. Put one line of code down, submit a rough draft, sign up for that class you've been considering. Consistent imperfect action builds your confidence strand by strand until you can't deny your own capability. You prove your doubting voices wrong. Closing. So those are the 3 keys to silencing your inner critic and unlocking more of your potential. Reframe negative self-talk into more empowering, realistic thoughts. Notice and replace harsh self-criticisms with self-compassion. Stay curious with a growth mindset. Approach fears and failures as opportunities to learn and expand your abilities. And most importantly, take imperfect action every single day. Done is always better than perfect. Small, messy steps in your desired direction mute self-doubt. I know it's not always easy to silence that harsh inner voice. We all struggle with bouts of fear and self-criticism. But you have the power to rewire those thoughts. With consistent practice overriding your inner critic using these 3 strategies, you'll slowly amplify your self-confidence and courage. As Les Brown said, in order to succeed, your desire for success has to be greater than your fear of failure. So identify that true desire deep within you. Fan those flames and use them to overpower self-doubt by reframing, staying curious, and taking imperfect action. I believe in you. You've got this. Be sure to share in the comments when you've defied your inner critic to take an important step. Let's inspire each other to unlock our full potential. That's it for this video. If you found it valuable, please subscribe and share it with someone who may need to hear this message. I'll catch you in the next motivational video soon.